Thank you so much.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, I think we're live on Facebook here. How's everyone on Facebook?
Yeah, we're good.
Anyone on Facebook, if you're interested, go ahead and drop your questions in the chat. I'll try to get to them, and we'll try to talk to Greg here. So, hey, Greg, we're really excited to have you on. Savannah, why don't you start off with introductions first?
Yeah, totally. Is it really echoey where I'm coming from?
I think it was earlier. Yeah.
Okay.
But not so much now.
Yeah, I'm setting up a little home office over here in Oregon at my parents' house. So it's empty. And if you hear chickens in the background, they have like 50 of them that are roaming around this property, and they all have little chicks right now. And so that's the noise that you hear. But I'll put myself on mute, Greg, while you're talking. Anyways, hey guys, I'm Savannah. I am a registered nurse in Los Angeles, California. I invest primarily in multifamily syndications. Just closed on our 4th syndication deal last Friday at 36 units. So now we're totaling 90 units in our portfolio. Super excited about that. I'm here in Oregon now, so I'm going to get a bunch of good footage and videos for one of our properties up here to post for our investors. And I started my brand, Net Worth Nurse, really kind of to raise capital, and then started just providing a lot of educational financial resources for nurses. So if anyone's new or wanting to get more information, I have tons of stuff on networthnurse.co that you can grab. Super excited to be a part of this group. Alex and I had started this really because of our commonality of healthcare professionals, and we're really just wanting to engage with other like-minded people investing in real estate. So reach out to us. We're happy to have you guys here. Alex, I'll have you go next.
Hey, everyone. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, you're good.
Hey, so my name is Alex Sabio. I'm a respiratory therapist. Been doing that 20 years now. I've been investing in real estate for quite a while. I did some long terms out of state, and now I do primarily short-term rentals, and now I'm pivoting to buying hotels and motels, which is why I'm really excited to have Greg here. Greg and I spent some time together looking at different motels, and we could talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, Greg, why don't you introduce yourself? Let everyone know who you are and how you got started in real estate.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. Thanks for having me. My name is Greg Mushen. I'm out of Seattle, Washington. Right now, I'm actually in Indianapolis. And so if I look like I'm in a car, it's because I am. We were touring all day, self-storage facility that we just bought, and a mobile home park. So I started investing about 6 years ago. But it's actually kind of funny because I'm in the city where I started. I was in Seattle. I was looking for passive income for cash flow, and just found it very difficult to do there. And so I started this search across the United States, and I was looking for markets that would cash flow, and kind of stumbled upon Indianapolis, and the numbers looked really good. I was realizing that a lot of the houses here at the time were actually selling for below replacement value, which is kind of crazy to think about. So I was like, how could you really go wrong if you could buy houses for less than the cost it would take to build? So that's worked out pretty well. But during the pandemic, like shortly before the pandemic, I wanted to start scaling up and moving into commercial assets. And so the story that I can tell today is about kind of how I got into a motel conversion. Do you want me to go into the presentation?
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, I'm gonna actually go ahead and in the chat room, I'm gonna drop a couple of your website and all that, so people can actually see
that'd be great.
We're looking at. Yeah.
Do you want to?
I'm gonna have you share your screen, right? Or
okay, perfect. It looks like it's disabled.
There you go. You should be able to do it. Okay. Sorry.
There we go. Oops, just 1 second. I just got a new laptop, so I may need to restart my browser here. We shall see.
Okay. But I'm gonna actually drop in the chat too a couple of the Airbnb listings because I found your listing there too.
Oh,
So that way
great.
people can
That's
see
perfect.
what it looks like and they can visualize. Because you did an awesome job with it. I always kind of always share your listing with other people. When I
Oh,
tell
thank you.
people I'm thinking about getting a motel and they think about like this old dirty motel, but I'm like, no, that's not
Yeah.
what I'm really thinking about. So,
Oh, that's great. Okay, I've got to quit and reopen. I'll be right back. Just one
okay,
second.
sure. All right. Yeah, so let me see. On the Facebook group, I'm gonna actually drop also in the this website so you guys can see it. Really interesting. They're all like A-frames. I'd love to get an A-frame. I actually missed out on one in the Smoky Mountains. Passed up on it. I should have jumped on it. It's called the Tidal House. That's his listing. Okay, I see your screen now, Greg.
Okay, great.
Yes, obsessed with Canva. I love it.
I love it too. It's really like one of my favorites.
It's the best.
All right, so I'm going to talk, and this is just going to tell a little story about buying this motel and turning, kind of working on renovating it during the pandemic. But yeah, feel free to jump in and ask any questions. No problem at all. So as I was mentioning, I was really wanting to scale into bigger properties. And I think that one of the reasons is there's one loan, one team, you really only have to underwrite it once. So in a way, it's kind of, it's not too much more work. In some cases, it's one floor plan. You can have one design and scale it. But also, I think that the motel space and hospitality is a little mispriced. And one of the reasons why is they still expect you to have on-site management. And in certain cases, for that manager to live on site. So I'll talk a little bit about how we got around that. I also think there's a sweet spot between the 10 and 30 units. And the reason why is it's a little too small for institutional, but it can kind of be a little bit, too big in some cases for mom and pop. So that's why I think it's a really attractive asset class. So I'm going to talk about Tidal House, which you saw in the chat. I'll talk about a little bit about the acquisition, getting the motel operational. I'll go into some of the numbers and then the lessons learned. And then feel free to jump in at any time if you have questions. So a little bit about me. I have a company called Mission Control Capital. I'm in a couple different asset classes with mobile home parks, hospitality, M&A. So I buy businesses too, and then do a little angel investing. So I come from a tech background. Here's some of the companies I've worked for. And then at the bottom, some of the products I recently released. So my entry into short-term rentals was not really intentional. And so the way that it happened is I bought this flip. You'll see it on the left. That was kind of mid-construction. And I made this mistake of pricing it a little bit too high. And so I didn't sell it. So I decided to turn it into a short-term rental. And this is in Indiana, in Indianapolis, actually probably less than a mile from where I am right now.
That was an Airbnb Plus there, huh?
Yeah, it was actually, it was one of the only, it was, I think one of the 3 in Indianapolis that got selected for Airbnb Plus. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah. I've seen a couple of people have that and I'm like, do you think it was worth it? I mean, like, cause there's a lot of like requirements, right?
There were, yeah. And I mean, I didn't really have to change anything to get it. I pretty much had all that stuff already. And so to me,
Okay.
it was great. They sent out a photographer and they took
Right.
amazing pictures, and yeah, it was definitely worth it.
Okay.
So in July of 2020, I had this friend that I used to work with, and he posted on Facebook this link to this hotel. And he's like, hey, does anybody want to go in on this hotel? And he was kind of joking around, but I looked at it and, it looked like it needed a lot of work. It was priced at this 4 cap, which I thought was, a little too expensive. But then, I slept on it and I looked back and, this seems like a pretty good deal. Kind of once again with replacement value, it was about, I think 75 to 77,000 per unit. So I thought that was a really good deal. So I started to take a little bit of a deeper dive. Here's the property. So these were the photos actually from the listing. So as you can see, like the roofs are in pretty rough shape. They all need to be replaced. But if you look here, it's like right by the beach. So it could not be in a better location. It's surrounded by, hotels and motels. And I think there was something that just drew me to this property because of just, built in the 60s. I love mid-century. So I was just like really attracted to it. These were the interior shots. So as you can see, like a lot of potential. They're A-frames, but they just had not been kept up. They needed a lot of updating.
Greg, had you been to the area before you
I had
invested
like
in the
once
area?
or twice,
Okay.
but it'd been a really long time. It'd been like 5 or 6 years, and I think even then I'd only been there twice. So yeah, I hadn't really been there. But I went on Airbnb and I noticed that this had a market grade of A+. And as I started doing a little bit more research, I realized that this market was actually one of the top 2 destinations in Washington State. And then I noticed something. If you look right here, this is what really intrigued me was when I looked at this, because the occupancy rate was 72%, but this was, and it's probably a little hard to see here, but this is the 90th percentile. And if you notice, that was like, 75th percentile. They were 100% booked for 5 months. And so I started to wonder, like, what's going on there? So what we figured out was 75th percentile and higher, they were just nicer units. That was the only difference. And so we interpreted this to mean that there was kind of more demand for nicer units than the market really has. So I messaged my friend and said, let's go for it. So I called a realtor. We got it under contract, and we really wanted to kind of like challenge ourselves. One thing I like to do before I make any investment is I want to write down like what is my thesis statement? Like, why do I think that now is a good time? Why do I think this is going to work? And most of the reason why is I don't want to beat myself up in retrospect. I want to know that I was like thinking through it properly. But at the time, it was really a time of a lot of unknowns. We didn't know what was going to happen to the travel sector. There were so many people who weren't even lending at the time. So I thought that it was really important. So we thought that COVID was going to impact the travel sector and really shift it to more to local, with fewer people flying. I noticed that, and I saw this on this Facebook group called Trends, but they posted this, that there was just like this huge demand for cabins. And then at the time, we were starting to see a little bit of recovery from April, which is awful for STRs. So I thought it was worth looking into. I told a few people, I told both like friends and other investors, and I got a lot. So I got a lot of people who would say, so you're buying a hotel and you've never done a hotel, you have no hospitality experience. My investor friends were telling me that we couldn't get a loan. They were saying nobody's lending on this. So got like a lot of discouraging comments, but we just kind of kept moving forward with it. We added an architect to the team, which was really good, and then a really good marketer to the team. And this is like our proforma. And by the way, I can share this with you if you want. I have a calculator that I use, which I can share with you. But when we started looking at this, we thought it was looking pretty good. We thought that it was like a 6.8 cap, I guess, as is. But we thought it could earn significantly more. We thought the NOI could be like 243 market rate. And what's actually pretty funny, to kind of skip to the chase, we're actually pretty accurate about the NOI, but the way that we arrived at that, like our assumptions were wildly inaccurate. So we did a lot better on our operating income. It's like double this, but our expenses were way higher. But we ended up being right around where we thought with the NOI.
Greg, how much income was the property producing when you purchased it? I mean, was it a
Almost,
functioning one, or was it poorly ran, or?
it was very poorly ran. So it had, we basically had almost no documentation. So we got, I don't even think that we got bank statements. She had 2 long-term renters in there. There were like 4 units that weren't even being rented at all. There were 3 units that were online and being rented. But we thought that they were kind of not being properly managed, if that makes sense.
That's
Yeah,
what I'm finding. A lot of these motels, they're just, especially the small mom and pops ones, they're not optimized anywhere near where they should be, you know.
They're not optimized at all.
Greg, did I miss why you said, why was the seller selling?
You know, she was so she was a solo kind of operator. So she was cleaning the rooms. She was doing everything herself. She'd owned it for, I think, 3 years at the time, and she was just exhausted. Which I can't even imagine doing that for 3 years. I cannot imagine doing it for like 3 months. So yeah, she was just kind of done with it. I think that she thought that she was going to get like a good price for it. So she was just ready to let it go.
Can you go back one slide?
Yeah.
So gross operating income from 72,000, what it was currently ran at, and you're calculating 283. That's a huge difference. So how are you feeling as an investor going into this? Like what are you using to justify that you're going to be able to get that up to market?
Yeah. So and we actually hit over 500. And so we like kind of blew that one away.
Man.
But
that is phenomenal.
I could show you. So basically what I do is I take the AirDNA data, and I have this calculator that will help you do this. But I look at things in every percentile. And so I look at things at the 75th, 50th, the 25th. I think they have 90 as well. And so I use all of these different combinations of ADR and occupancy. And I kind of look at the median for 50-50. And so in this case, I was like at 50 percentile of ADR and 50th percentile of occupancy. If we can hit that, we should do great. And so that's what this, that's what this was calculated off, was just 50% ADR and 50th percentile of occupancy.
Are you going to talk about the lending piece a little bit? Because you mentioned that the books were horrible, and experience getting lending with horrible books is like usually a no-go. So I'm curious to hear your process with the banks with that.
You know, in retrospect, it's so ridiculous that we even got it, because we had no records. We didn't have 2 years of financials or anything like that. And we didn't really have experience in this space, and it was the pandemic. But, really what I think that for whatever reason, they were just kind of sold on us. And I showed them the data. I ran them through how we got that data. I actually gave them my login to AirDNA. I showed them the listings, and then we created kind of this pitch deck. This pitch deck. So we created this pitch deck that showed, exactly kind of the background of everybody, and how we were planning on doing it. And for whatever reason, they just believed us and funded the loan. I think that knowing what I know now, I'd be like a lot, even though I'm more experienced, I'd be more scared of trying to go get that loan. But I guess there's this advantage. You could call it the Dunning-Kruger effect. We were new enough to be dangerous, but we were so, I think, inexperienced at the time that we didn't know that that was a problem. So the other thing that we saw when we got an appraisal was they were kind of calculating that we would need about $70,000 for an on-site manager, and we'd have to take a unit offline. And so we looked at that and we're like, oh my gosh, we can't really afford that. What are we going to do? And so we kind of committed to just automating it. And so here's a little bit about our stack that we used. We use these open edge 710s for the locks. They don't have any bolting mechanism, and like 6-month battery. We thought those are great. We use LockState for the software, Hostfully to basically manage messaging across multiple platforms, and then booking. We got some Amazon Blinks, and then we did a ton of stuff in Zapier. And I actually have an entire presentation on just like what we did with automation. But like the first foray into this was super humbling. Like we went to go try to like install our first lock, and it was literally comical. It took us 6 hours, and we got to the point where we literally put the door on these sawhorses so that we could all try to figure out what we needed to do. And then we couldn't get it connected. It was just a huge mess. But we finally got it working. And then I'll never forget the time that we got our first like fully automated booking, like end to end. And we're like, okay, this is going to be cool.
So you pretty much got rid of that front desk person and run this like how I run my Airbnbs, just fully automated. Is that correct?
Fully automated. Yep.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yep. I mean, that a lot of people talk to me and they're like, that's not possible, but here's proof that it can be done. So,
and you're saving $1,000 a year doing that.
Absolutely. And when you combine, that plus having a unit offline, it's a lot of money that you're adding to the value of the place. So It's worth it. It's like well over $1 million, even just like a 7 cap or 8 cap.
$70,000 savings over a 7 cap. You're like, added so much value into the property.
Yeah, because you're actually taking a unit offline too. So it's over 100,000. So you're adding so much value by doing that.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, I actually lived on site because I was working remotely, and so I was living on there until we found cleaners. There were a couple times that I wasn't paying attention and was like literally cleaning a room while I was on a Zoom call for work. So it was a pretty funny, like first 3 months was great in retrospect, but it was a lot of learning. We had tons of challenges. Like we got shut down by labor and industries because we didn't get an asbestos test. And so we learned that. We had supply chain difficulty. It was taking 6 to 8 weeks to get furniture, labor shortages. I was literally following people around that were driving any truck with tool boxes on the back. We couldn't find certain trades. We had failing roofs. We had like a tarp on the roof for one of our units for like a couple months. As I was kind of mentioning earlier, expenses were a lot higher. Doing that self-management in construction management was a pretty full-time job. It was pretty intense for a while. And then one of the team members just decided that, hey, this isn't really for me. And so we actually ended up buying him out. So yeah, there were a lot of challenges, but it was like so worth it. Like when I look back on it, I kind of look back on those things pretty fondly. So yeah, I think our pro forma for July, this is of last year, was 2,600 gross. Our actual was about 7,500, and we ended up buying it for 750,000. And so we were getting like the 1% rule per unit, which was pretty amazing. Our let's see, gross operating income was 283. For 2022, our run rate is about $500,000.
Wait,
And then
wait.
we were fine.
So $500,000 that you're
Yeah,
generating in 2022.
that's right. Yeah,
It's crazy, Savannah, because we're looking at like we were looking in Fort Lauderdale for properties that are like $1 million that would generate $100,000 or something like that. And this
yeah,
completely blows it out of the water. It's not even close.
yeah. And I think, some of it was us kind of, viewing it through that different lens. We saw this thing as a four cap, that when we ran the numbers ourselves, we thought it was going to be a lot higher. But I think also, like, a lot of it was luck. We thought it was going to be 2,600. I think that some of this was just good timing. It wasn't like all, our smarts. I think it was maybe like 20% of that, 80% luck maybe. But yeah, there was an element of luck. But these are remodeled units. We're renting for about 55% more than non-remodeled units. And so that like really proved our thesis statement when we saw that really high occupancy. And then we were able to automate about 90% of those management tasks. And we still have on-site staff, but it's cleaners. We have kind of a role that we call runner, which is if somebody needs something, we can like text people that we have hired out there. And then here's some before and after pictures. So this was one of my favorite units. It was unit 4. That's before. This the after. Was really happy with how it came out. Here are a couple more examples. And by the way, we're still not done with these units. If you notice, there's like no artwork on the walls or anything like that. So this is still a little bit MVP. There's the bedroom. Unfortunately, we had to get rid of some of this wood paneling. Bathroom. This is our bathroom. We spent $1,200 in parts, excluding the tile. So that's something that we worked on pretty hard.
Who's your interior designer, Greg?
So we kind of split it up between the team. So Michael, who's our kind of marketer, he bought the furniture. I think I bought some of the pillows. It was kind of a big collaborative effort. We have an architect on our team who kind of helped a lot as well. He contributed just like a ton. But yeah, it's just kind of the three of us. I don't think that we would do that again. We'd probably hire like a designer. But
you guys hit it out of the park. Look at this thing.
It looks beautiful.
Right?
It's so clean. I feel like that's just the way to go with this type of stuff. How much did you have allocated for renovations for this project?
So that's kind of another funny thing. I think in our proforma, we thought that we were going to spend about 10 grand per unit. Just laughable now. I think we ended up spending about 20 per unit, and that's kind of like all in. So yeah, about double what we thought, but it's still like pretty good in terms of like rehab numbers, I think. So yeah, some lessons I learned. Yeah, I really do think that this space is just an overlooked niche. I think there's so much opportunity, and I think it's definitely worth looking into. So I think that there's a sweet spot for multifamily where it's like 10 to 30 units, where it's like too small for syndicators. They're not going to make a lot of money off of it, but it's kind of like too big for kind of your individual investors. I think for hospitality, they're going to be looking for I think it's under 70 keys, because I think that the institutional players, they're not really going to look at much under 70 keys. So too small for large operators. It's like too unique for chains or flagged hotels. And really private equity needs that cookie cutter for scale. So they need to find like something that they can just do and repeat over and over. And I think that by and large, like hospitality investors, really kind of look at this space as like kind of unprofitable due to high overhead. So that's kind of on the supply side. On the demand side, I think that you can find a lot of these just interesting properties. Like what I loved about this was you had these lofts, just very unique. It's like not your cookie cutter motel.
Yeah, that's why I asked why the seller was selling. So I invest in like these smaller size multifamily as well. I have a 12 unit, 24, 18, and 36, so smaller. And the motivation for the seller is always the key reason of why we're buying it, right? Like that is where you're adding value. And the fact that you found this property, a lady was running it on her own. If you would have shown her the potential that this building had, or this property had to generate $500,000 in revenue in a year, like you probably would have blown her mind. I don't know if she would have actually believed it if you would have told her that.
Yeah, I don't think she would have.
The thing is, these sellers, they don't care. They're done with it. They're hands up, walking away with it. All of the multifamily buildings that we have bought are it's very similar situations with the seller just being done. They don't want to do it. They don't see the value there. They've been running it for years and years. And it takes investors coming in, seeing that value, having a motivated seller, and then going there and adding the value to these deals. It's huge.
Definitely. I think that like one really good litmus test in my mind is just go take a look at the hotel's website, and that's really kind of all you need to know, in my opinion. If they like have a really like an outdated website like 1996 GeoCities, you know you've probably got really good potential in that hotel or motel.
Yeah, and it's
They're
funny,
probably not
like
doing revenue
you could look,
management or anything like that.
yeah, you could look on Google Maps and read the reviews, and some of the reviews are just awful. Like,
Yeah,
why would anyone ever stay at a motel like this? Like, you're talking like, hey, there's 80 reviews and they're averaging 2 stars. Like, it
yes,
is awful, you know? So, and
yeah, I
actually,
love that.
that's
Like,
a easy way to do homework on these motels too. I mean, like your customers or your guests are pretty much telling you everything on Google. So,
yeah, absolutely. That's actually a really good point. That's one thing that we did is we went through and like looked at every review on Google. And actually what we found was that there were people who were like commenting on like this mattress, and they're like, oh my God, it was the most comfortable mattress ever. The place was dirty. It's really outdated, but man, that mattress was amazing. And so, you know, we went right into that unit and like took down what kind of mattress it was, and then just used that mattress on every other unit. Pretty funny. So yeah, you can glean a lot from the reviews. So another thing that I think is really interesting about these is they can be in like smaller towns or like really interesting locations. So these properties can really kind of become the draw of that location. I think that oh yeah, okay. So this one's a big inspiration for me. Um, so you know, right here, this is Kate and her husband. They bought this um, a motel in Salida, Colorado, and they just did this amazing job on it, and it actually started drawing people into the town, and this motel became this attraction. So that's always kind of been this inspiration to me, because sometimes you'll find these places, they're maybe not in the most ideal locations or what you might not think is the most ideal location, but they can become an attraction for sure. People want unique, and they want something that's like novel, memorable. So the other one's automation. I'm just such a huge fan of this. Just make so much more money. Here is kind of the math. So we think that just by automating, it probably added about 1.1 million to the property. And to kind of explain how this works, for those of you who may have not done like multifamily or commercial, everything runs off what you call a cap rate. And what that means is if you don't have any debt on it, so no debt, what would it make for net operating income? And so in the case of a 7% capitalization, that means if you had a place for $1 million, it would generate 70,000 in NOI. So if you're saving 80,000 to kind of back into the value, you just divide by 7 and it's, 1.1 million. So I think this other huge overlooked asset is people think that you're gonna have way more expenses than you would. If you automate it, you can just add so much value to it.
Yeah, even with the multifamily too, I mean, for example, on one of our units, we have someone moving out and it's a turnover, which is a loss, right? But we're able to increase rents $300 a month, and because of the cap rate, it adds $80,000 to the NOI, just that one turnover. So multifamily functions in a different realm like that. So I love this equation that you popped up on here. I'm curious too, because you didn't show on any of your equations, like what are you cash flowing on that? Do you have that number?
Yeah, I do. So we're cash flowing about 240,000. It's right around there. Yeah, so that's our net.
Wow.
What's your team? You didn't syndicate that, right? Who it's just
no, we didn't syndicate it. I think we each put in about 100,000 dollars into that, and then we've been just going slowly, and we've had the revenue pay for kind of the rest of the repairs. So yeah, that's basically what we've been doing. And to get a little bit more precise, it's like net operating income. Our loan for this is like really low. It's like 3,600 a month, I think. And so yeah, it's basically that NOI minus the 36,000. It's like 240, something like that.
This is ridiculous, man.
Yeah,
I'm doing something wrong. I look at all the stuff I do and I'm like, man, what am I doing here?
You're not. I think like what I was saying, I think that we just got we didn't know what we were going to get from this. And I think there's just a lot of luck involved here. We were seeing those things where it's like, okay, yeah, the nicer units are getting more money, but then also like last year has been like a record year due to COVID. So we had like market tailwinds. Yeah, it's not like all of us. I think we just kind of got lucky, and we bought it during this time in July of 2020 when nobody wanted to touch these things. And so, we weren't facing a lot of competition. We got it for a great price.
So that's the thing. I love, so many people in this space will like claim that they got lucky, but like Greg, you did so many other things that people wouldn't do. This looks like a huge, like risky deal. Like it looked kind of, like POS in a way, but like saw the potential there, it wasn't generating a lot of income, but you saw it there. So there's a huge risk there that you took. And then the financing piece, like I know the financing piece, like trying to get a lender to lend on a property like this is very difficult. And you guys created a whole pitch deck for your lender. Most investors would not do that. So you guys went a step ahead and did that to acquire it as well. And then, I mean, I think you guys put a lot more work into it than you're giving yourselves credit for. But
we did put a lot of work into it. But yeah, I do think there's just this element of just luck too. I don't want to discount the luck factor, but yeah, we did put in a ton of work. But yeah, it was being the right place, the right time too. So this other one is scale saves time, and so what I love about these multi-units is that you can just have like one team. So one design for the multiple units. You're anyone who you're working with on the construction side, they just get so familiar with like stamping it out. One loan, one insurance, which is just great. Yeah, I think there's a little bit different commercial underwriting. So I think that a lot of the lenders are going to use things like GRM, which is gross rent multiplier, or DCR, debt coverage ratio. So I think that if you're interested in doing this, it's good to just kind of like familiarize yourself with the language, and it doesn't take much. You can just read a book on it, see how they're kind of underwritten, learn the language, and you should be good to go. And not only that, but if you talk to a lender and you just say, hey, what is the DCR that you're looking for? Or sometimes it's called DSCR, but they'll know what you mean. You automatically come off as like this more educated person. So it's good to use those terms and then speak in that language with them. So in terms of like deal sourcing, brokers, wholesalers, I'm like really big, I think, on direct to seller. So I think we're going to be doing some campaigns there. The reason why I think that that's such high potential, and I know others who've had success with it, but like Savannah was saying, a lot of these people are tired. They're mom and pops. They've been running these for 30, 40 years. They're ready to retire. There are 10 million baby boomers who retire every year. So now it's kind of like this golden time to have motivated sellers. And they're working in the motel. They're going to answer the phone, and you can just ask them, hey, would you be open to an offer? And they'll probably tell you. So I think there's like really big potential there. Okay. Oh yeah. So I do think that for lenders, a lot of lenders haven't seen this model, especially if you're like transitioning something that was like multifamily into this. So I think it's good to find somebody who's open-minded. I think it's good to try small community banks. I do think this pitch deck is like really important, but also kind of like thinking through the lens of your loan officer and what they're going through. They're going to have to take this to committee for approval, for loan approval. So what are the things that you can do to make their job easier? So I think that if you can think about that, like Savannah was saying, like a lot of people aren't going to be putting together the pitch deck, but if you put together like something compelling, and they're not going to be, they won't have seen that before in these meetings. So I think that it can really kind of help you stand out. Okay, last but not least, I just want to like include my email address. So if you ever have any questions, if you want a copy of the pro forma that we use to get this underwritten, let me know. The feedback that we got on the pro forma was it was one of the most detailed that he'd seen in a while. So yeah, if you want that, just email me. Add me on Facebook if you want to. Always looking for someone. So deal sourcing, I want to talk a little bit about that. I think these smaller brokers can be like a great source of deal flow. So there's one called Crystal Investment Properties in the Pacific Northwest. Wholesalers, so you can look for multifamily wholesalers on Facebook. I think it's great to let them know that, what your buy box is. And then direct to seller. So this one, there is commercial software called Reonomy that can work. You can also use other software. What was the one that we were using, Alex? It is PropStream.
Yeah, PropStream.
So that's another good one. You can also just build it manually with Google Maps. There's a tool that I use called Local Scraper, which will scrape the results of Google Maps. And so like what Alex was saying, if you want to find like 2-star motels, you could search for motels in whatever region you're in. That will generate a spreadsheet. You can then sort on star rating. And then there are some good tools that you can use, like dialers, like call tools that will help you do tons of calls, or like SMS tools, launch control. So a lot of these people will respond to SMS. And then another route is handwritten letters, I think are really good. The reason why I think handwritten is you have to pass that first screen, which is people have to think that it's not junk mail. And if you send something that looks like an invitation or something like that, it'll just increase the likelihood of making it through that filter. Yeah, any questions? Email me, add me on Facebook if you want. I'd love to see what other investors are doing and to network with other investors.
Hey, Greg, thanks for that. One of the questions I get all the time and is how much work is this? Like a lot of us already have short-term rentals and we automate everything, but like how much work are we looking at?
Yeah, this one was a pretty heavy lift. I think that some of that, if I kind of like break that down, one of the biggest, probably two main reasons. One, we were doing this during a difficult time where it's just like hard to find people to work in general. Secondly, it's in somewhat a more remote area, and that just makes it harder to find people in general. So this one was a lot of work. I was on site for, I think I made 45 trips that first year over year. So I made a ton of trips out there. But I think that like a lot of that could be mitigated if you're in a slightly larger market. It's not the pandemic, you have people working. Like if you could hire a general contractor, this would be significantly less. So I think for us, it was just kind of like timing. And then also we just had a pretty small budget. And so we just did a lot of the stuff ourselves not like in terms of like the construction work, but in terms of like that management, really kind of getting it up and running. It was a lot of work.
Did you put in the work? And I mean, do you know what it's valued at today, or what do you think it's worth now?
Well, I think that you can kind of back into that a little bit, because let me just, I'm going to pull up my numbers here for the NOI. So I think it'd be worth about, probably 3 million or so. A lot of this is just going to depend on cap rate, but yeah, I think it's probably about 3 million. I think that'd be pretty conservative.
Yeah, just the one, even one thing you did alone is just automating the whole process and getting rid of that staff, and it showed that you boosted the value by $1 million. You bought it for less than $1 million, right? Just that one shift in business model, that's crazy to me. So
yeah, and like one thing on that too, like I do have a software background, but the automation that we did is achievable by anyone in this group. So don't think that you need a software background. You don't. The tools these days that are available are amazing. Zapier, like you are all very smart people who are capable of technical things due to your career. This is not going to be hard for you. So I guess that'd be one thing. Just don't be intimidated. Just do what you can to really look into what are the problems you're trying to solve. And if anything, just give it an attempt. Try to solve it for like an hour. And then chances are you'll be like, oh, I'm so close. And you'll spend like 4 more hours and then you'll get it. So yeah, but everyone in this meeting is well overqualified, I would say, to do that automation.
let's go to some questions. Lenny, you got your hand up.
Hey, thanks, Alex. Greg, man, this was fantastic. Thanks for sharing. I mean, ran into an amazing deal. It's awesome. We love the automation part of it. That's crazy. But I'm not sure if I missed this or not, but you mentioned that you went over budget 100% per I guess what did you guys do? Because you said you didn't do a syndication or raise money. So, like what was that whole process like? You guys just came out your pocket, wrote a check for the additional money, or did you, make some money and dump the money back in? Like what did you guys do? What that looks like?
Yeah, it was mostly the latter. And so yeah, we realized that we were pretty far off, and that was for a number of reasons. One, I think the cost of supplies went up considerably during that period of time. There was labor shortage, and so like cost of labor went up. And then the last one, these are pretty old units, so there's like a lot that we just didn't anticipate. But also we like overestimated how fast we would get it done. So we thought that we would get it done a lot faster, and so what ended up happening is we just went a lot slower, but we had the revenue from the hotel, and so we didn't have to put much more in. I think that at the end of it, we contributed each, I think, $25,000 more, but the revenue from the hotel was paid for like most of the upgrades.
And how many people went in on the deal, if you don't mind me asking?
Originally 3, so there were 3, but then oh, and then one, there were 4 of us, but one was like a very, very small percentage. So we ended up buying out one of our partners, and we did that through a debt offering. And so we were able to raise basically $100,000 as debt to buy that partner out.
Excellent. Thanks, Rick. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
What do you plan on doing with it now? Are you gonna do I mean, you pretty much did a BRRRR, right? You could go to a bank right now and get all of your money back if you wanted to. Or are you looking to trade it up, or what's your plans with the Tidal House?
Yeah, I think like we've been starting those conversations. We know that we want to refinance at some point in time, take some cash out, like get all of our money back, and hopefully a little bit more for the down payment in our second place. So that's kind of our plan. We'd like to go for something a little bit bigger this next time around, probably in the $3 to $5 million range. So yeah, I think that's what we're gonna do. We for Tidal House, we're all from Washington State, and we love the beauty of the Pacific Northwest and kind of the memories that people can have in these places of natural beauty. But a lot of these places, they don't really have memorable places to stay, I would say. So kind of the goal of Tidal House is we really want to provide these like relaxing locations that are 2.5 hours from Seattle right now, where they can get there on a Friday night and just go there to feel refreshed. So we're kind of looking in this 2.5 hour radius from Seattle.
Yeah, you gotta let me know if you get something, man.
We'll do. We're close on one right now, actually.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
I just love what you did. What's the occupancy like on this thing? I mean, a lot of us have the short-term rentals and we have like a 60-70% occupancy. I mean, I have no idea. Is it like 20%, or is it pretty similar to what
Yeah,
STR
actually,
is?
let me pull it up. My partner actually sends it out every week, so I can show you the actuals. Just 1 second here. Let me pull this up in Slack. So to answer your question, like during the summer, this is a seasonal market and it's very busy during the summer. It's not as busy during the winter. And during the summer, it's pretty much like 100%.
Wow.
But yeah, let me bring this up here. I'll share this screen with you, and then you'll know that it's unscripted. So let's see, here is the last one. And so we've got, yeah, even through January, 90. We did 76, 78, wow. 79, 92 for April. May's at 83 right now. I think it'll probably finish around 90. And then we'll probably have, these will be over 90 for sure. They just haven't booked up. And then here's ADR. So we're looking, I can't wait for July if this materializes.
Wow.
But yeah, that's what we're looking for. And then this is one thing that's great about Hostfully is that you can distribute through these other channels. And so, and we're en route right now. So sorry if it seems like we're moving. We are moving. Okay. But yeah, we're getting, I think like 80% of our bookings through, or 17% to 25% of our bookings through non-Airbnb channels. So that has been pretty good for us. And then we also use revenue management. So we're using Price Labs. My partner Michael is in there like every week changing prices. And so I think that that's like a really good thing to do as well, is to you really kind of view this as you're really kind of competing in search every day. Every time somebody searches, it's a new competition. So I think that there's a lot that you can do there. Just winning on price, a ton that you can do.
Yeah, that's another thing. Like a lot of motels, they just have their price like $85 a night or something, and they don't really mess with it. Like look at July, that's the peak season, and you guys are charging like almost $100 more than like your non-peak season here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's where you make you can make so much more money just by putting in good pictures, good marketing description, and then pricing.
Right.
I think a lot of these motels, like we were looking at one motel, and this is why I think that if you can find something that has a bad website, you're kind of onto something. Because if you can go in there and you can basically take new pictures, you can implement Price Labs dynamic pricing, and then distribute it to all the different channels. If you do those three things, what we were looking at is we thought that we could, on this one property that we were looking at, we thought we would get a 20% bump. It was selling for a 9.6 cap in place. And when you do a 20% bump on that, it changes it to a 13 cap. And so kind of if you just do the rough math there, on $1 million, that would be 96,000. You're taking it up to 130. And so like going back to Alex's comment about a BRRRR, you've got a BRRRR right there. Just by putting it online, taking new pictures, you can refi after 2 years, just doing that, zero construction. And depending on what cap rates do, get all of your money back. So yeah, I think that there's just so much opportunity just in marketing it. It's like not to be underestimated.
Yes, I love it. Thank you. It's now 6 here in Pacific time. So thank you guys all. Greg, thank you so much for showing this rock star deal. Like this is when I first started learning about multifamily and was learning like one good deal could buy you that freedom. I was like this is a prime example of like just having this one deal and you're set, like you're chilling, you know? I mean, but of course all of us are addicted to real estate. So one's never enough and we just want to scale.
Exactly.
But I love it. Thank you for being so transparent with your numbers. It's super helpful to see all that. Thank you. And then how did you say people can get a hold of you?
So you can add me on Facebook. It's just
Okay.
Greg Mushen. Facebook/Greg Mushen. And then you can email me at greg@tidal.house.
Awesome. Amazing. Cool. Well, thank you all for joining. I will post up the recording of this on the YouTube channel and also the Facebook group. So if any of you guys missed it or want to rehash through some of those numbers that he shared, I will be putting that up probably tomorrow. And then Alex, what do we got going on next week?
Next week, we're doing network night. So join us Wednesday. We don't really have a agenda or anything. It's just talking to everyone else that like Lenny's here every single week. Romel's here almost every week.
Amanda,
my brother's here.
Yeah.
So really good. Highly recommend just networking with people. If not, just having a good time talking to other people for an hour.
Yes. Awesome. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for spending the time here with us tonight, and we will see you next week.
Okay, guys. Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.